Thank you, Jimmy. Today's program is the Seattle Opera, featuring General Director Christina Scheppelmann, and fortunately for us, two of her colleagues who will perform. Our musical guests are Joshua Stuart and David Mcdade. Tenor Joshua Stuart has a long association with the title role of Charlie Parker's Yardbird, which he is performing now at Seattle Opera. Joshua has also sung the role with 3 other operas. Pianist David Mcdade is Seattle Opera's principal coach, pianist, and assistant chorus master. He has served as assistant conductor of every presentation of The Ring since 1995. Here to present Charlie Parker's Yardbird, please give a warm Seattle 4 welcome to Joshua Stuart and David Mcdade. Joshua Stuart, David Mcdade, thank you so much. Christina, now we are really excited to hear from you with that warm-up. Christina Scheppelmann was born in Hamburg, Germany, and is the fourth general director to lead Seattle Opera. Christina has directed other operas around the world, including in Barcelona, in Oman, the first opera of its kind in the Gulf region, and the Washington National Opera. Christina's passion for the art form and desire to see it flourish led her to be a champion of young artists in terms of their training and opportunities to compete around the world. She is fluent in 5 languages, and her communication skills have fueled her success in collaboration with unions, civic leaders, conductors, directors, designers, the press, and of course, singers. Christina began her career in the children's choir of the Hamburg State Opera. Please give a warm Seattle 4 welcome to Christina Scheppelmann.
Thank you very much for this very kind introduction, and thank you all for being here and for having me here. I came first to Seattle in 1994. That's also when I met Spade Jenkins, and I've seen several performances here in Seattle over the years while working at San Francisco Opera and then later also at Washington Opera before heading off to Oman, which was a fabulous time, by the way. But if you have questions about that, I'm happy to answer those. We are at Seattle Opera in the middle of our season, of course. I know that there are some subscribers here, some opera goers here, so I don't have to repeat the whole season we're doing. But if you haven't been this season yet, we still have 3 performances of Yardbird and a whole run of Bohème in May. So, yes, Ken? Bitte schön. Thank you. That was a stellar performance. Thank you very much. And we, of course, have plans also for the future. We have world premieres that will come here to Seattle. We have a world premiere co-producing with Metropolitan Opera New York, which will premiere here in Seattle and then go to New York. We have new productions, co-productions, and we also have a new project that we start next season. It's called Creation Lab, which is a project to encourage local Seattle and Washington State composers to write new pieces, because I believe that the future of opera is only ensured if we create new pieces. Otherwise, we become a boring museum, and even the Louvre does not just have the Mona Lisa in there. But what I wanted to do first, before I go into other details that I think are worthwhile pointing out about the arts in a city, is give you a little history of patronage, because I don't think that everybody realizes that the oldest documented patron of the arts was Gaius Maecenas, a consultant to the Emperor Augustus. Gaius Maecenas lived from 68 BC to 6 BC. And he actually employed, and so far then supported, the poets Virgil and Horace, and was so far the first documented patron. And over the centuries, we had many. Maecenas also coined the noun, the word for patron, in several languages. In Spanish, we call it mecenazgo, in French, mécénat. In German, a patron is Mäzen, and it derives directly from this very first patron in the arts. In Europe, we had monarchies and nobilities always supporting arts. This is nothing new. Actually, the change came during the beginning or the early part of the 20th century, basically after the First and Second World War, when many countries became democracies and were not monarchies anymore. That's when the governments in the constitution, including support for the arts and education. For example, Germany has something called Bildungsauftrag in the constitution, which means that the government has an obligation to educate. That means education is basically free, and the government supports the arts. Museums, orchestras, opera houses, theaters, all sorts of institutions. But before, it was all sponsored by nobility or monarchies. I mean, Michelangelo was basically hired constantly by the Medici family. Prince Esterhazy employed Haydn for 40 years as his court composer and conductor. Beethoven was supported, and because of the Archduke Rudolph, could live in Vienna and compose in Vienna. So there's a long history of private support of the arts. And of course, one of the greatest art supporters here in the US was Andrew Carnegie, whose input and whose legacy we still see today, not only the Carnegie Hall, but in many other institutions like Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and many more. If we do think, though, that government subsidies are the solution to all pains, we're wrong. I can tell you from personal experience that government subsidies in the arts also lead to waste, because you have to spend the money that they give you. If you don't spend it, they're going to cut you next year. So I don't know if that's the ideal system. Personally, I actually believe that somewhere in the middle lies the truth, and what we have here, the private subsidies make you certainly responsible as to how you spend your money, because I know who's giving me what, and I think that's good. I think that's good for us who run these organizations. You can be rest assured that we do this in a very responsible way. I don't know if all politicians in Europe can be actually assured of the same as far as how the money is being spent. Obviously, arts institutions, especially opera, are huge. I mean, Seattle Opera, by the end of the year, has employed about 800 people. They're not 800 12-month employees, but we do have, at the end of the year, we've had a huge impact on the economy of Seattle, a huge impact on the arts in Seattle by employing all sorts of artistic personnel, which goes, of course, from musicians, dancers, choristers, backstage technicians, crafts, carpenters, electricians, wig masters, engineers, stage managers, pyrotechnic experts, rigging experts, and those are just a few. So we really feed the arts in the city on many levels. The complexity of this staff obviously generates costs, which exceeds ticket sales. We all know this. This is no news. But that happens basically everywhere. So the 35% that we can cover from ticket revenue is way better than what European theaters do, that when they cover 15 or 20% of their expenses by ticket revenue, they're great heroes. They're really considered, they've achieved a lot. So between 35 and 40, we're doing much better in this country. And the private support, once, of course, ensures that we exist, but it also ensures that it's accessible for everybody. If we made the ticket cost cover all the expenses of a symphony orchestra, a museum, or an opera company. In the case of an opera company, tickets would have to cost about $1,500 per seat, and then nobody would come, and then we would have nothing, which is not really such a good idea, in my opinion. The National Endowment of the Arts reports that in the last 5 years, more than 177,000 people were employed in cultural institutions across the state of Washington, meaning that all of us, and I'm not just speaking in support of the opera, which of course I like to do, only talk about the opera, but I don't think it's fair. I really believe that the arts in general in a city are crucial. I would like the arts in general to be supported and be part of a vibrant and interesting city that attracts people to live here. So overall, the Washington arts sector actually added $41.1 billion to our economy. So whatever you do by contributing or by coming to us or using arts institutions, you're contributing also greatly to the economy of the state. We don't just cost money, as some people believe, we also contribute because there's a secondary economy. It's not just us, you buy a ticket and we employ a lot of people, but you use taxis to come to us, you go to a restaurant, or you come to the city and stay in a hotel. There's a lot of other effects that we have on the economy. What is surprising, though, that Seattle now only ranks 10th in expected growth of the creative class in this area and in this city. And I think we need to appeal to corporate and civic leaders to maintain our top-tier status. I mean, meanwhile, we have more growth in the creative industries in Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Orlando. I'm not even from Seattle, but I'd like Seattle to be ahead of those cities I just named. And obviously, we also have we need policy that enhance education, safety, natural resources, and cultural institutions. So if we ever come to you to support any policies, please do support them, because they will maintain and keep your city vibrant and interesting. We all face financial challenges. If you think that because Seattle Opera is big, that we're just swimming in generous budgets, it's not true. Neither the symphony nor the ballet nor any arts institution is in a perfectly safe situation ever. So if you want the arts here, keep giving to us and keep coming to us also. We want to see you, obviously. There are various institutions, arts institutions, that closed in the last years. Baltimore Symphony had huge problems. The American Theater Company in Chicago, a fantastic theater company, closed in 2018. Philadelphia History Museum closed. And all of these closures have a ripple effect in the arts sector and in the economy, but especially in the arts sector. If one closes, it affects the others and can also endanger the others. So you might say, oh, well, whatever, one closes, comes another, or it doesn't really affect me. I'm going to be a little extreme now, so bear with me. Imagine for a moment a city completely deprived of artists, creators, without any creativity and art in general in the city. You go, okay, fine, no Seattle Art Museum, no Banneraya Hall, McCall Hall may be closed, Asian Art Museum, Fifth Avenue Theater may be locked. Well, I'll live with it somehow. I'll watch television. Well, but no art means also no King FM, no KX FM, no music on your phones, no music on television or in film. There are no muse in television anymore. If you don't have art, you have no writers, you don't have actors, you don't have cameramen, you don't have any script writers, people that adapt the story to a TV series or a movie. So that's all out. No libraries, no books, no singing in churches, no unique architecture that define where we live, no Space Needle. All buildings and homes are the same. The Fremont Trawl is gone. No Blue Thunder drumline at the Seahawks game. No UW marching band, no dance, piano, or trumpet lessons, no children's choirs or community bands, no Pratt Fine Arts Center, Gage Academy, and the Seattle Art League. We would wear the same shoes, the same eyeglasses, the same clothing. We would drive the same car. No home decorations. We would use the same plates, silverware, and glasses. Fascinating landscape for us to live in, huh? We sometimes don't think through what art actually means. We might like the design of this carpet or not, but somebody designed that. We might like the glasses that my neighbor is wearing or not, but somebody designed that. That is part of creativity and art. Everything, all the creative industries come down to somebody thinking creatively, if they're doing music or designing clothes or whatever it is. We need arts in our community. It's part of our life, and it needs to stay and be considered an important part of our life. Oops, should have been drinking a little bit more maybe. I'll do it later. 2 years ago, the Giving Institute reported all U.S. charitable giving was at $427.7 billion, a decline of 2% over the previous year. Giving to arts, culture, and humanities stayed relatively flat, even though we expect the same or more from the performing arts, from our artists, from our musicians, from our actors. We have high expectations, we see television, movie, and we want all the same in our city. Well, that doesn't come for less. That needs to be paid for, and all those artists like Josh and David today, they didn't get up one day and started playing and singing really well. That takes years, many years, to get at a high level of expertise, like it takes many years to be an excellent lawyer or a great banker. That is not overnight, and the art's the same. Those are high level, highly trained professionals. Keep that in mind on occasion. So Seattle, I think, should stay and has to stay a really interesting and artistically vibrant city, or it will be a relatively boring place to be. The big tech companies appeal to their recruits with great jobs, of course, but also they say it's great, it has arts, it has sports, it has, by the way, I also believe sports and a good sports team belong to a great city. But a lot of the companies attract the new employees with what the city has to offer. I would like to ask those companies to, on occasion, think what do they do and contribute for the arts to be there. Because just to say, come to us, we have opera, ballet, music, and all the great entertainment of the world, that is great. But then once they're here, and a lot of them actually stay here. Not everybody, which is often said, that they come to Amazon, stay 2 years, and then leave again. Actually, I've talked with the general counsel of Amazon who said, no, a lot of them stay for many years here and have families here. Well, what they're going to do here if there is a desert cultural landscape? Also, the arts have always been the visible part of a powerful city. If a city was influential politically and economically, they had great arts. And great, like the Medici, they had their own way of becoming powerful and rich, but they showed it by bringing some of the best philosophers, artists, composers, musicians to their city. And not only, they also brought them to Rome, given the influence they had in Rome, obviously. And there's something to be proud about when you have great artists and great music in your city. And I think that we need to, all of us, keep wanting the arts here and wanting also Seattle Opera to be here and wanting people like David and Josh to perform at a great level. The artists want to come. They like Seattle Opera, they like the symphony, they enjoy coming here. In some places you have to pay twice the fees in order to make them come. The city and its arts institutions doesn't have to do that. They come because they like to come here, because they believe in the quality of the arts institutions. The symphony, our staff, our management, our craftspeople in our company. Nevertheless, and despite getting some federal arts funding, the state support last year was just about $1.6 million to the arts. That's kind of a little more than Mississippi appropriated to their arts in their state. And Minnesota, Hawaii, and Maryland actually rank at the top of all the states. We rank at spot 45. So when we ask for some more support, also public support, we do this for a good reason, because we believe it's necessary, and we believe as the arts institutions, and we have a great group that's called the Arts Roundtable, all CEOs, we meet once a month. It's a great group of fabulous professionals, and we do compare with other states. And I think for Washington State to be 45 in the ranking is really not appropriate. Of course, you can also ask, well, what about homelessness, education, environment, criminal justice reform, infrastructure, caring for seniors, and so on and so on. Those are critical challenges, and we're not oblivious to it. That's why we have a lot of programs for schools also. We go to senior homes, we go to around the state and perform in many schools, school appropriate and lengthwise appropriate pieces that are interesting for students. But a vibrant, well-funded arts community can help address some of these issues. Research tells us that children engaged in the art have long-term academic success. They are 3 times more likely to earn bachelor's degrees. They have high career attainment. They are civic-minded. Additionally, when children from disadvantaged circumstances engage in the arts, their achievements are far greater. So in a nutshell, a child that participates in the arts is far less likely to get in trouble in its teen years, is more likely to succeed in life and excel in a career no matter what. So basically, it produces what is interesting and desirable by corporations that want to employ useful employees. The arts stimulate creative thinking, teamwork, empathy, perseverance, and focus. Arts education is good for business. Seattle Opera does, of course, opera in McCaw Hall, but through all our programs also, we reach 23,000 students. We go and bring people and children to the Opera Center, Techni Jones Hall. Our new Opera Center is only a year and a half old, and we have brought many children and just members of the community into Techni Jones Hall. We try and will do more. I'd like to do a monthly jazz afternoon there. We just collaborated with Jazz Ed, and I'd like to do more. I'd like kids to come in and not be hesitant about going into this big institution called the Opera or McCaw Hall or Seattle Center. Because when you go to Seattle Center, it is a little intimidating. I've talked with some students at UW recently, and they said, yeah, it looks a little, we don't know what's in there. But then one said to me, oh, once I was there, so beautiful, fascinating, and they dress up elegantly. I'm going to go next time to a consignment store and get a nice, beautiful dress before I come next time. And I think this is wonderful to hear that. I've been going to the opera since I was 16. I've been singing in opera since I was 14. There's no age limit to it. You can be excited about opera and about the arts and classical music, about the museum, about painting when you are 6, 7, or 8, as much as when you are 85 or 95. It doesn't matter. There's no age limit. Oh, great. Thanks for the spotlight. Appreciate it. What happens often is just that when you enjoy the arts, you often then, after school, after college, you have another focus. So there are some years where you might not go as much to the opera or to a concert. You have a family, you have kids that you need to raise, but usually people then come back. It's crucial that we have kids exposed to the arts early on so that they know it's there, and when they're adults, they will choose to go there. If they only do sports, they will only do sports. And I love sports. Started doing sports when I was 7. I played at competitive level team handball, which is not something you do much in the U.S. But so I'm not a music and opera nerd. Don't think that. I also ride motorcycles. So, in essence and in closing, since I'm being waved at that I ran out of time. Yeah, Ken, it's you. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. I firmly believe that art is not a luxury, that art is an essential part of life, but it does need support. And we all, I think, have a responsibility to make sure it's there, because I think we all, in one form or another, we do enjoy and have art as part of our lives. If not all of you come to the opera, I don't care. Well, I do a little bit, but we do have art in our life, all of us. And I do also personally think, aside from all other important values, I believe that art teaches us civility, keeps us connected to our humanity. So in very few words, we need the arts. I'm going to stop there before I'm getting the red card like in soccer. Yeah. And thank you very much for listening to me. If you expected more about the opera, I'm happy to do this. But I really think that, and we've talked about this a lot at the Arts Roundtable, we need to support and talk about the arts in the city at large, not just about single institutions. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If I don't have the answer, I admit to it too. And
do I get to go first?
Let's. You
We have a lot of hands up.
I know.
And Jeff is the first one I saw, so he gets to go first.
Okay, Jack goes first, and then I saw over there some hands going up very quickly.
They're all over. And I just have to say, I agree with everything you say, and I believe art saves lives.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. You talked a lot about the importance of arts, and yet we, at the youth level, we focus very much these days on STEM. What does that do to the pipeline of artists coming up?
Well, not all that much. I think that what we need to focus on is to make sure that the kids, young, go to theater, go to sing, play an instrument, and that we encourage that. I'm not a parent, so it's easy for me to say, but we encourage that the parents encourage that and really are behind it, because sometimes in school, kids also get looked at a little funny and said, what, you play the piano, the violin? I mean, unfortunately, kids tend to do what everybody else does. Let's teach our kids to be different. Let's teach our kids to have our own opinion and our own preferences, and not just do, just because everybody likes the quarterback doesn't mean all quarterbacks are the most handsome ones in the group. You just need to look somewhere else. We need to create individual people early on so that they choose what they really want to do and not what everybody else tells them to do. I always say we shouldn't be lemmings. Let's all be very big individuals and create more individuals. More in detail, I cannot prove what that does or not, but I hope that answers the question a little bit. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you very much for coming. I was fascinated by the story about you're going to Oman. I've been there many times over the last 30 years, and I love Arab society and culture.
Yeah, me too.
Language, and I'm really curious about the opera there, and is it designed to introduce the traditional culture of opera to the region, predominantly for the expat culture, or did you experiment with including local society and culture in the opera you did? I'm really interested in what you did.
Thank you. Sultan Qaboos, who passed away just a few weeks ago and governed the country for about 43 years, created that Royal Opera House Muscat as a place for cultural exchange. And it's called an opera house, but it really is a performing arts center. So 30% of the programming are the Arabic stars. I mean, the Arab world has phenomenal musicians and great stars. And we had a consultant, obviously. I'm not an Arab music expert. I'd be lying if I said that. But for me, it was fascinating to learn and meet a lot of them and get to know them. I mean, Kazim Al-Sakhir, Majdarumi, Lotfi Bouchnak. I mean, there's a huge number of fantastic artists in that part of the world. So 30% is Arab music events. I did by mandate of the Sultan and by the Deputy Prime Minister, I did 5 to 6 operas. They were imported, of course. I mean, you cannot build a building and think that all of a sudden magically you have orchestras and singers and all of that. It's the same like building here a theater for Beijing opera. That doesn't mean that all of us are able to perform Beijing opera all of a sudden. You gotta import them. So I brought the Vienna State Opera, I brought San Carlo from Naples, I brought the Bavarian State Opera from Munich. I mean, various companies come, perform, and do a concert and perform a production. They bring everything, chorus and costumes, and put everything in a container and send it that direction. We had about 2 to 4 ballet companies every season also. We did world music, jazz. I had some folklore from Central Asia also. I brought 2 groups from Iran. I went to an Irani music festival in Tehran and brought groups from there to Oman. And it's really a variety. It's about showing off the musical world, bringing the musical world to Muscat. Whoever comes will experience Omani culture a little bit and then hopefully enjoy. I think I love Oman. I'm going on Friday, by the way. And enjoys and can hopefully see and learn a little bit about the Omani culture. And on the other hand, it's the Omanis who experience, Omanis and expats in Muscat and in the country, experience culture from all over the world without having to travel around. They come to them. And we also had audience from Abu Dhabi, from Dubai, from Beirut. I mean, they came certain distances. I mean, the Arabic audience came more for the Arab stars, of course, but they traveled far. We also had people coming from Mumbai, because Mumbai is pretty much across from Muscat. Tehran is about an hour 15 flight distance. So we had a certain reach, and it's an incredibly beautiful opera house. It's a theater that is concert hall and opera house. There is a big concert shell that weighs about 400 tons. It has an integrated organ with 4,500 pipes. And this whole thing, when you lay the parquet in the right place, then the concert shell moves forward and connects seamless with the auditorium. And then it looks like a concert hall. While this concert shell is towards the back of the stage, then you have a normal stage with the grid, with an orchestra pit, and it's about 1,000 seats. It varies on the setup between 900 and 1,000 seats, more or less, with phenomenal acoustic. Claudio Abbado, Joshua Bell said that the acoustic is perfect, so you don't have to take my word and believe that. And it's a very, very beautiful opera house that was built according to the architectural style that the Sultan had given and for his palaces. So his palaces and certain official buildings, they all are more or less in the same style, as much also as the mosque, the Sultan Qaboos mosque is also in that style, and that mosque is gorgeously beautiful. So I encourage you all to go and take a look. It's really worth, don't believe everything you read in the press. Go and see for yourself, which is why I enjoyed living in many places in the world. I'm from Hamburg. I lived in Venice, Milan, Barcelona, San Francisco, Washington, Muscat, and now here in Seattle. And I'm fascinated by all. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I enjoy it. Yes?
Hi, I'm Sherry. Oh, stand up. What about the new center being built over in Bellevue, if it actually gets approved? Is that going to take away from fundraising for the Seattle side, or do you think, because it's the same base of donors, correct?
Well, not exactly, because the Bellevue, the plans for Bellevue are financed by a few corporations especially. There's still going to be a few years before this will be actually built and in existence, and in an ideal world, I do believe that that could complement. I mean, I think we need to pay attention that Bellevue doesn't outplay us. All of a sudden the focus is not on Bellevue, but it's so close. I do think that if it's done right and with some dialogue, that both sides can complement each other. I think that to make this a competition is really, forgive me, idiotic and not useful to the region and to the people living and working in this region. But that's just my humble opinion.
Hi, Suzanne Fortune here. Thank you for being here. I wanted to share a story about my personal family, about the arts.
Mm-hmm.
So my youngest son of 3, at about 8th grade, he had an undiagnosed learning disability, and he was getting really very disruptive in class. And I was very fortunate enough to decide to pull him out of sports, and I put him in a program called Broadway Bound that's in U District. And through that program, he absolutely flourished. He spent 2 or 3 years in it, and it completely changed his trajectory in school and in life. And he was actually, I was really concerned about him actually even dropping out of school. And through this whole program and being in the arts, I mean, this stuff is not anecdotal. This is actually real. Mm-hmm. And I'm really thankful that we have it in our area, and I'm very happy that my son was involved.
Thank you for sharing this, because it's easy for me to say that art is good for children and for everybody, but I think there are stories like yours that actually prove the point, and those stories are important for people to hear them. Thank you very much.
There was a fascinating study recently, a brain scientist that found that song, I don't know if you heard about this, but sung words are much more stimulating to the brain than either music by itself or words by itself. And I wondered if, in my mind, which is relatively crazy as a musician myself,
little
I'm
craziness
thinking,
is good.
why aren't we doing more singing in business? And I just wondered if you have thought of, or if there's an opportunity for a program to encourage more businesses to set up choruses and dramatic performances of messages with song.
We don't have specific programs planned, but I love the question. But what we do have is sing-along events where people can come and sing along. Next season we will have some drinking songs. There are a lot of drinking songs in opera, so we have a drinking song sing-along. We have, so there are opportunity to sing with us in our opera center, but I think there's an interesting suggestion that I will talk with my colleagues about, and thank you for that, because I mean, I started singing when I was 6 in school, and I also played the recorder in school. I mean, it was all free. It was offered to us through the public music school, and actually singing is incredibly stimulating to the brain. And to me, the proof is that what I learned as a child in the children's chorus, I mean, the Parsifal, the music and the text, I can still remember the music and the text. If you ask me to recite the text without singing it on the melody, I can't. It's impossible. I have to do it combined. But that combination did stick with me, and I would think, since Josh is smiling at me, I think there's some truth to that. Yeah. One more question, if there is one, and if not, I will. Oh yes, sure.
Well, thank you very much for coming. First of all, I want to say I went to Yardbird the other night, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
It was great, and I went, when I had read the critics, I went, what performance were they at? Because I thought it was great. And
Thank you.
I've been a subscriber almost continuously since 1968. I love classical, but I also love your new operas.
Thank you.
Now, a quick question, are we going to have a ring cycle again?
If somebody is sitting on a check of about 16 million, sure, no problem. But meanwhile, we will, I mean, I am planning on having other Wagner titles in the future. Possibly the first one would be a Tristan and Isolde, and I'm also looking at a Lohengrin. But I mean, I'm not trying to eliminate Wagner from the city, because I love Wagner, but the ring cycle, I think, is a little further out. Also, Valkyrie could be done alone standing, maybe, but the cycle is further out. And I also have to say that Seattle once was unique with the ring cycle. Meanwhile, everybody else is doing it. You know, I mean, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Washington, Los Angeles, Houston. So many companies these days are doing it. I've done it twice while I worked in San Francisco, and we also did it one at a time, one every season in Washington. So it's not unique anymore. And if Seattle does it again, it better be really good. And it also needs to fit well.
As I hand this mic back to Ken, I want to just suggest, it was suggested to me by an artist many years ago, for all of you businessmen, put an artist on your board of directors. It will change the entire organization's perspective. Thanks.
That's right. Thank you very much again for having me. Appreciate it.